All right. We're back, man, for another episode of the Crave Show with JRuss and Chris.
Hey,
Man, it's good
Chris.
to see you, JRuss. How's it going,
Yeah, you
bro?
too. It's great. How was camping?
It's good. Well, we actually didn't go camping. We went to Colorado. We try to go every summer with my wife's family. And we go up to this place. It's called Platoro. So
Hmm.
I guess that's a mixture of plata, which means silver, I think. Oro is gold. So silver and gold, I guess. I don't know. But
Okay.
it's a little mountain village up in the mountains, almost at tree line, actually. Like it's way up there, like probably about 8,500 feet, 9,000 feet. And there's this little village up there. There's only people that live there in the summer. Like it's just completely inaccessible in the winter. So we do some fishing in the river. We fish in the reservoir. We do some hiking, just hang out, play dominoes, 42, whatever. Man, it's pretty nice. It's nice. It's fun.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, so it was good.
Cool.
How have you been? What's been going on?
Mm, we did some team training. We Our camp finished last weekend, and then I went to work with Chemtrails, Skydive Midwest Chemtrails. They're a VFS team in
Okay.
Wisconsin, and then they have the Wisconsin Head Up State Record coming up. It starts tomorrow,
Oh,
so
nice.
uh, a bunch of people from here drove up there just now. Just most of the caravan just left, and I'm going with the Skyvan in the morning. I'm gonna fly over with Rook, and he's gonna fly us. It's just two plane shots, so not huge. I think it's like 35 people,
Okay.
and yeah, looking forward to that. Records.
So tell
Oh,
us
go ahead.
what can you tell us about that?
About the head up record.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Chemtrails guys are a VFS team based there, and they've done a few different events with state records, head down record and head up record. I think they also did a sequential. I think the current record is 16 in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So, uh, and if we're at 35 or 6, looking to break that by a pretty solid margin. Um, I I kind of insisted on being in the base.
Why
So
is that?
um, well, it's important to have a good base, and nothing against anybody that's in the base already. They're all good flyers, and I just said, like, if you're not sure where to put me, just put me in the base, because a lot of times people don't like to be in the base, and I don't mind it at all. I want the base to be solid, and I
Mm,
feel like if I'm there, I can help. And uh, if they say I need to go somewhere else, I will. But in the meantime, I'm gonna
yeah. So
happily be there.
why would you not want to be in the base? Well, is it boring or what do you mean? I don't understand.
Um, I'm not sure. I mean, definitely, there's people who have complained that they don't want to be in the base. Um, I don't
Is that
know.
typically an easier spot?
Well, I don't know. I honestly don't know that. I think that it can be a little bit easier. Like you're the base, so it's not like you can't be in the jump. You're always in the jump. But
Mm-hmm.
then the exit can be challenging for sure. Keeping everything line of flight can be a challenge. When people dock on the base, they impart energy many times, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the base is really challenging. And I don't know that. I don't think I could ever claim that I have been bored on a skydive. Not once. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm uncertain about people who find a way to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is a question because I was going back and watching over y'all's Crave course, and a question that I have for like formation scat, whether it's a world record or not, doesn't matter. Like a record of any kind doesn't matter. At one point, you talked about like the base has to face a certain direction. I guess not has to, but is supposed to face a certain direction, right? Like if you're planning one of these jumps, you plan out like this is the direction that the base is going to face. Is that correct? Did I understand correctly?
100%. Yeah.
So that means that so and so would be on this side of jump run, so and so would be opposite him or her on this side of jump run, and other people. So they not only do they have a position within the base, but they are supposed to be positioned relative to the ground in a certain orientation, facing certain directions, north, south, east, west. Is that right?
Yes, that is totally correct. There is at least one person who's in the base of any formation that's responsible for line of flight. And
Okay, that's what I want to know. Tell me about how do you that's my question. Who does that? How do you control that? Who Yeah, can you explain that a
sure,
little bit more?
yeah. So for a head up formation, it's going to be me in this dive, say, and we're launching a 6-way base out of the Skyvan. So I'm in the center of the tailgate facing the pilot.
Okay.
And so I come out and sit back a little bit, and the people inside kind of sit forward, and we go feet into the relative wind. And then I'm looking up at the Skyvan, and it's unlikely that, I mean, 6 people that I don't jump with on a regular basis or ever. It's very unlikely that we're going to come out on heading. So normally my little spiel to the people that are in the base is like, hey, it's probably not going to come out on heading, and I'm going to put us back on line of flight. I don't want your help. I just want you to fly real neutral. And when I get us there, you'll see me nod my head a few times. That means that we're good, and the breaker inners can start getting in. And then if I nod again, we need to speed up. And if I nod at you, you need to speed up.
How do I know the difference if you're nodding or nodding at me?
If I'm nodding, generally, I'm looking straight across at my cross partner.
Okay.
And if I'm looking to the right or left, I'm
Okay.
looking at
If
you.
you're making eye contact with me and I'm not your cross partner and you're nodding, that's at me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once the breaker inners get in, if it's just so it's a 6-way base we're launching, and then it'll turn into an 8-way base because there's 2 guys breaking in. And then once they're in, I could still affect line of flight. Like if they don't do a great job getting in, they turn us somehow. As long as it's just 8 of us, probably I can turn us. And then I'll still keep trying, but once the first stingers get on, it starts getting a lot more difficult for any one person to affect the heading at that point. So then it becomes more of a team effort where everybody should understand if we're turning, should make sure they're not the problem, number one, and then actively try to stop that turn if they can. But then, say the 200 way, which is head down, then it's the opposite person who's line of flight. Like normally it's Rook, and he will be in the center of whatever the base is, facing out, facing away from the pilot. When they flip over, then he's looking back up at the Skyvan, and then everything else is the same.
So when it's just that initial 6-way base, and you're saying you tell the other 5 guys or girls, like, hey, just fly neutral.
Yep.
You can turn that. You can move that just with your own.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Okay. Is it pretty easy to do?
I wouldn't call it easy, but it's not crazy hard either.
Okay.
Head down's a little bit easier. Head up is a little bit harder.
Okay. And are you just doing what I would imagine you're doing? You're just side sliding and pulling and pushing? I mean, just
hold on tight and side slide.
Just push the circle around whichever direction. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. That's cool.
And then I just got to decide when to stop.
Yeah. Is it hard to stop it once you get it moving?
Mm-mm.
No. People kind of feel the tugs and pulls, and they kind of.
Yeah, and they're all good flyers, so it's going to be really neutral. It's just that I've had times in the past where even with that statement of, guys, I don't need your help, people try to help me, and they think we need to go the way that I don't agree with. And so I'm trying to go one way, and they're trying to go the other way. And I'm like, man, it should not be this hard. So I try to be explicit about, you just fly neutral and I'll take care of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I could totally see that. I'd be like, I'm going to help him out, and totally screwing it up. We get down on the ground. You're like, Chris, you're out. Get to the sideline. Sit down. Sit your butt down.
This record is going to be great because I'm not in charge of anything. I mean, I'm line of flight, but I'm not an organizer. So these are super fun events for me because all I have to do is to be docked in my slot. I'm in the base. Like nothing's going to, I mean, probably everything's going to be okay in the base. And then I just, screw around. I got Matt Congdon is on my left. He's one of the chemtrails guys. Richo, if you know Richo, he's in the base. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to, after the first breakoff wave, I'm going to be corking people out, seeing if they'll cut me.
That's awesome, dude. That sounds. I hope I have a chance to do some jumps like that sometime soon. That sounds really fun. And 35, like that's not a lot, really. You know, I mean, that's like a fun.
Eh,
That sounds fun, man. I mean, it
yeah.
is a lot, but it's not like 200.
Yeah. So I think the records or the events that are around 60, like a three plane shot, those are really nice because the if you think about the alignment of any formation that people try and draw up, usually it's got some symmetry to it. And uh, when you have three planes, you have a lead plane and a trail plane and a trail plane,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're symmetry, and so you
Okay.
can get people to their spot and build a symmetric formation with no carving. Basically, everyone can come and just have a straight approach.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas tomorrow we're going to start with a lead plane and a right trail, and so we have to have, in order to have like a symmetric formation, somebody's got to carve over to the other
Mm-hmm.
side, and they minimize it. But yeah, hopefully if you get into something, it's on the three plane shot. Those are, I don't know what the right word is, easier maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little maybe cleaner or something. I don't know.
Mm,
Yeah.
cleaner. That's a great way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so I wanted to real quick. We do have a few people in the audience, which I'm really stoked about that.
Yeah.
So if you're in the audience right now watching, Jason and I are so glad that you're here watching. This is cool for us. Like I
Yeah.
love even if nobody's watching, I love sitting and talking with you and just chewing the fat, shooting the bull. It's so fun, man. But I really my hope is, and I know your hope is as well, that people will, number one, enjoy these shows, these episodes, and benefit from them. I mean, really, that's our hope. Our hope is that people can learn something, maybe hear a fun story, and hear some safety stuff, maybe some coaching tips or whatever. And part of the things that we're wanting to do, and I've said this other episodes, I'm going to say it again right now. Somebody said happy to listen with Paul said happy to listen with y'all. Thanks, Paul. Man, we're glad to hear it, dude. But we've said this before. I want to say it again. If you're watching this episode live or you see it online or something, we really want to work into the ability to offer live coaching and feedback. So we actually have a link set up on the Crave website where you can go to the show. You can upload a video in advance. We'll get those videos. We'll go through them. We'll look at them. And the idea is that you upload a video of yourself doing something. Maybe you're working on a particular exit, or you're working on a free fly skill, or you're working on head up, whatever, something. And we will look at those videos. And then for the next recording, we'll have you on the show. We'll pull up your video. We'll look at it live, watch it together with you, and then offer you some coaching, some instruction, some tips on that video. We would love to get into that, to do that more and more and more, that would become kind of the bulk of the show is what we're hoping. Kind of like, I don't know if anybody remembers Car Talk. That's what I keep comparing it to. I was inspired by Car Talk, where you call in and say you have a problem with your car and they help you diagnose it. But this is for skydivers. So please, if you're watching the show live or you're watching online, share it with your friends, share it with people you know, other skydivers that you think would enjoy it and benefit from it. And hopefully we can get that going more and more. You want to say anything about that, JRuss?
No, you said it perfectly.
Yeah, and I like that you just put in the chat. You said don't be scared to ask questions. That's, yeah, for sure. If you have questions you want to throw up in the chat, that's a great way to do that. Thank you, Jason, for saying that.
Yeah.
Well, so on that note, one of the things we want to do is, we talked, I think last episode, we were talking about your friend Monica and kind of a pretty scary incident, right? That happened. So she's going to join us here in just a second. She's going to log in. She's going to be here on the show with us. So we've got a video that she's going to share of that. It was basically it was a canopy collision, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Monica.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect timing. Perfect. So JRuss, do you want to kind of tell us a little bit about it? And then I'm just going to let you and Monica kind of talk through and go through this stuff. If I have questions or comments, I'll chime in, but do you mind just kind of taking the wheel?
No, but I might actually hand it off to Monica really
That's
fast.
great. Yeah, that's great. No problem.
Yeah, just a few weeks ago, Steph, my wife, shared a video with me that Monica had posted, and it showed um, two different video perspectives of a canopy collision that Monica was involved in, and then Steph had said that the posting was sort of uh, just sort of, hey, this happened, and please don't be toxic, but I'm trying to learn from what happened, and if you have constructive comments, I'm happy to listen to them. But just it seemed like a real positive post about this was a bad situation, but everybody's okay. We're just a little banged up and just trying to learn from it. So yeah, that's about it. And then I watched the video. Of course, there was a few different discussions about that video at Skydive Chicago, kind of in the free fly corner. We put it up on the big screen. We talked about it for a little while, and it just made me think that, especially considering that Monica's approach was one of, hey, I want to learn from this, and if anybody's got any insights. And then people were asking me, kind of, as we watched the video, what do you think? What would you have done? What was the right thing? Blah, blah, blah. Just seemed like a good topic to discuss. So with that being said, I think Monica should probably take over, and we can listen to her.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I think it's probably easiest if we start with the free fall. So the other jumper and I, we were on a 5-way free fly jump with some of our friends. Free fall went great. Canopy deployment went great. And then it came for landing. And so I think a couple of important pieces of information here was that it was a sunset jump. You know, kick beer was set up in the P pit at Orange for people to come in, aim at, and try to kick beer as they were landing. And so now that brings us to landing. So myself and the other jumper, we were in our downwind leg at the same time, but at different altitudes. And so that's because of different wing loadings and different canopy types. So I'm on a Crossfire 299 loaded at a 1.6. And the other jumper is on a Vela 103 loaded at a 2.3. And so on downwind leg, I saw the other jumper, I saw him looking at the P pit, and so I assumed, you know, he sees me. I was a little bit inside of him, I was closer to the landing area. He and I land together all the time. So I made that assumption that he saw me, and so I continued my plan to go for the P pit. And so I turned on base, and then I turned on final, and then right before I started my flare to land, I was impacted from behind. The other jumper, his canopy impacted the back of my lines, which immediately caused his canopy to collapse and caused him to impact the ground pretty hard. In the moment, I was able to recognize immediately what had happened. I saw his canopy over my head. I recognized the colors. And so the only thought going through my mind at that time was just keep flying the canopy, right? Just keep flying it all the way to the ground. And that's what I did.
So about how high off the ground were you when you guys impacted, when y'all hit?
We were about 15, 20 feet.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And you have that video with you, right? Can we watch the video?
Yeah.
Can you share your screen?
I can. Let me see. Let's go ahead and share.
And while she's pulling that up, I do want to say, you know, there's a difficult line for us to kind of walk in these sort of things. We want to hold each other accountable for safety. We want to learn from one another. We want to even correct one another. When, you know, Jason, JRuss, if we're jumping together and I do something that's unsafe, you have an obligation and responsibility to tell me, right? And to call me on it.
Mm-hmm.
I have an obligation and a responsibility to try to humble myself and listen and learn from that. So I hope that anybody that sees this or hears us talking understands that that's the line we're trying to walk, is to help everyone be safer, help everyone be better. We are not trying to, as I said to Monica yesterday, we're not trying to throw anyone under the bus. We're not trying to castigate anyone. We're not trying to deride or make someone look bad. We're saying, hey, here's something that happened. What can we learn from it? How can we all be better? how can we all be safer so that we don't make these same mistakes?
Okay, so I just shared my screen. Are you guys able to see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, so this is the ground view here. Let me see. Let's hide that. Oh, okay. Well, looks like it buffered a little bit. Give me 1 second. There we go.
Hmm. Monica, see if you can go ahead and play it again and stop it before the collision, and then
Okay,
see if you can move it forward kind of frame by frame.
sure. Let's see. It's going to have that pop up.
And then Monica, do you also have his inside view that you posted?
I do.
Okay. I mean, that one is also instructional to look at. So,
Yep.
Yeah, and JRuss, please, anything that you want
Well,
to share that you see,
so
I really want to hear.
if we pause this just for a second and just talk about what that outside view of Monica shows, uh, it looks as though from that viewpoint that Monica's turning in front of the swooper. And it isn't really until you see this viewpoint of his that you can see. Monica, I'm assuming that when you talked to him, he said he didn't see you.
That's correct.
Yeah. Because if he had, this would be a whole different conversation. But okay, so the assumption is that he didn't see Monica, or his statement is that he didn't see her. However, when you see this video here, Monica's, I think I can see just in the top of your green canopy there, kind of over his right shoulder, and from this perspective now you can see that she should have been seen, but she's in a place that's like right behind his arm. If he were to look to the right, she should have been seen, and it's easier to see in this perspective that she is lower at this moment. She's closer to the target at this moment, and he is going to turn and get lower and then increase speed so that from the perspective we just saw, it looks as though Monica's turned in front of him and he's the lower canopy, but that's not actually the scenario.
Okay, right here. Hold on, Monica. Can you see your canopy in this frame?
I can. Yeah. So
Can you
it's
circle it? Kind of put your mouse around it or pointing at it or something. I don't know if we can see your mouse.
So unfortunately, I am just using this as a touch screen. But if
Oh,
you
okay.
see
Is it right there? Is it kind of to the corner, at the corner of that metal building?
yeah, do you see the smaller white
Yes.
awning that's in front? Yep. So it looks like my canopy is right above that.
Gotcha. Okay, I see it.
Yep.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and play? You want to play it, Jason?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit difficult, I think, with the way that the sort of the video transfer is happening. It's not being smooth, but maybe this one would be better.
Oh, so this is the same video.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go back to the other one more time. Mm. Yeah.
So I had talked to Monica earlier this week and just said, or maybe last week, and just said, I'd like this to be as organic as we can possibly make it, where I have thoughts about this, but I didn't want to say anything to her until we had a chance to hear from her what are the lessons, like what do you think about this scenario, and if you got feedback from other people, if the other jumper had anything salient to add, if you had learning points or things you would do differently next time. I think it's more important to hear them from you first.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say for me, the biggest takeaway is just to not assume anything, never assume anything, right? When I saw the other jumper, I assumed that he saw me because I was able to see his face. I assumed because I was closer to the landing area that he saw me. I also assumed that, since him and I have landed together in the tandem landing area time and time again, I assumed it's fine. He sees me. Um, so even at our home drop zone, at any drop zone, just that assumption is a form of complacency. So that's the biggest takeaway for me.
Okay, Chris, did you see that chat message?
No.
It says Raleigh says she can't hear Monica anymore. I can hear Monica very, very clearly.
Yeah, I can hear her fine.
I'm not sure about that. So in response to that, Monica, I would say for sure that that's a good takeaway. That if you see another person, then that's at least a good start. And until you feel confident that they either see you or you understand as clearly as you can what their intent is in that moment, it's probably better to be a little bit cautious until you have confidence that they see you, and that can be difficult. Especially with people that you don't know very well. Sounds like you know this guy reasonably well, and that you guys have experience together, and so that also contributes to not. I don't think it's complacency. I think it's just maybe comfort with the situation, that if it was someone other than him, you might not have been as comfortable. And so I would be hesitant to call that complacency. It just
Okay.
develops, I think, very naturally among jumpers that know each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good way to put it. Just being overly comfortable because we have that experience landing next to each other all the time.
Yeah. And did he have anything to add? Did he have anything that, he said he learned or he would do differently that you can recall?
So he and I have been talking a lot after this incident. Both of us just want to learn from it and make sure that we're not in the same situation again. And so when I asked him one of his big takeaways, he mentioned how, back when we were all in AFF, we were taught it only takes one person to avoid a collision, right? And the facts don't matter if you're dead or injured, right? So even if you are in the right, regardless, just being that one person, being aware and keeping your head on a swivel, that can mean the difference between life and death.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess when I was, sorry, before sometimes I get ahead of myself. Are there other points that you felt like were worth discussing related to this incident, or other things that you thought are good takeaways to tell other people?
Um, I think for me, the biggest one was just the assumptions piece.
Can I ask, did you guys have any discussion about pull altitudes? You guys were on the same group skydive?
We were, yes.
Yeah. And so if he's loaded at 2.3 and you're loaded at 1.6, I think you said, how did you guys arrive at this moment at the same time?
So we didn't discuss pull altitudes. I know that for me, I usually pull around 3,500 feet. I don't know where his pull altitude was.
But yours was a normal pull, and
Yeah,
I'll hope and assume that you don't spiral down in the pattern.
correct.
Yeah, cool. So it's very possible that he pulled a little bit higher, right? Maybe with a higher performance canopy, he wanted a little bit more time, or but one of the things that I think that it's important for a lot of people to hear is that when we have similar pull altitudes, you know, everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people put their second audible at 3.5, which I think is pretty common, meaning that you're going to have a pin out, I don't know, 3.2 or 3.1 or something like that, maybe settle in on 2,500 or 2,400, somewhere around there. And with that in mind, if we're all doing that, then as long as no one is making aggressive moves towards the ground, there's a very natural separation that happens between canopies based on wing loading, and the smaller canopies generally descend quicker. And that's assuming that we're all in the same group, but it works pretty well even with different groups. But you guys were in the same group, and somehow, despite those somewhat different wing loadings, you guys made it to this point at the same moment. What would you say is the experience level as far as this didn't look like it looked like just a 90-degree turn to me on a 2.3 wing loading, is a relatively small turn in my opinion. And so it made me wonder about what is the experience level of the other jumper, and do they normally swoop, and is this their normal turn, and those kinds of questions. Do you know answers to things like that?
So I might be able to provide some of the information. So they have about 750 jumps, and they've done several canopy courses to get up to where they are. In terms of swooping, I know that he does a lot of hop and pop jumps, so he does focus a lot on canopy work and those landings.
Okay. Yeah, I think that one of the things that develops, whether it's organic or not, I'm not sure, but maybe through coaching also, is the awareness similar to if you're a skier, the responsibility for skiing is on the person that's behind, and they're the uphill skier. They have to avoid the people that are below them, and it's very similar thought process for canopy, that if you're higher in the pattern, you are responsible for avoiding the people that are lower than you. The people that are lower to the ground can't be looking up and trying to decide what the people above them are going to do. And in a very similar way, when you start swooping and you're adding a lot of speed, you're intentionally adding speed close to the ground. You also have an added responsibility to check off people in the pattern. And if we talk, I think a few weeks ago we talked about an accident that happened in Paris with Pat McGowan, where only two people in the sky managed to hit each other, and they both died. And I don't know the specifics of that, but similar to what you said, after the fact, it's just it doesn't really matter who's at fault if there's a fatality or there's two fatalities. And I totally agree with whoever told you that. In this case, I think that other jumper, obviously trying to gain experience, but still, to be honest, with the whole crowd, that 700 jumps is not very many to be on a 2.3 wing loading, in my opinion. And you would have to be dedicating quite a bit of time, like all 700 jumps to canopy flight to justify that. And it made me wonder when I saw the video of an inside 360 camera to film a 90-degree turn. I thought, I wonder if this guy's kind of newer to swooping, because I would be bored to tears filming my 90-degree turns over and over again. It's just not something that I would care to review. And so if I were to talk to that other jumper, there would definitely be hey, you have a lot more responsibility now, if you're going to get your canopy going faster than everyone else's, to make sure that you have space to fly into. And hopefully that was part of the discussion. And one of the I know I'm kind of rambling on here, but one of the things that I talked to, say, the organizers at Summerfest about is they are allowed to make 90-degree turns, and a lot of them have smaller canopies. But it's really important to keep in mind that there's just a whole bunch of people who want to put their feet on the ground safely, and they don't care if they're going any faster, and they don't care if they swoop. They just want to get down from the skydive and be safe. And when you're swooping, you really need to keep that in mind, that nobody except you really gives a shit about your swoop. And if you're endangering other people, you're doing it wrong. And so I think there's, you know, the things that you said about not taking for granted that he saw you is a great point for you. You know, when you see him and you think, oh, I don't know if it registered to you where you were in his perspective. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's up and to your left and you are down and to his right. And a 90-degree turn doesn't have a lot of blind spots, but in that video, you can see that if he's looking here, it's possible that you were obscured by his own arm. And so I'm not saying that that's your fault at all. I'm just saying that if you recognize that you are a little bit behind him and a little bit lower, that's a tough spot maybe for him to see, or the only tough spot. And if you had hit the brakes a little bit, that might have prevented that until you knew for sure that he saw you. He kicked a leg like, hey, go, I'm waiting on you, or some kind of signal that there's, hey, I see you. But otherwise, I don't know this guy, and I don't want to throw him under the bus, but I do want to put responsibility where it belongs and say that swoopers have additional responsibility to care for the other people in the sky.
Thanks, JRuss.
Yeah.
If and I'm just saying this based off using the language that Monica used, the assumption language. If you're going to make an assumption, just assume that they don't see you. Like, make that your assumption. I used to ride motorcycles, not a lot, but enough. And that was what somebody taught me a long time ago when I was like 16 years old and I started riding motorcycles. They said, you need to assume that every car on the road is trying to kill you, because they don't, especially in America, people do not look for motorcycles. So it's like, you got to have that mindset that every car on the road is trying to run you over. And I think there's been a couple times that actually saved my life, because I assumed that they absolutely didn't, or were trying to hit me or what, you know. So and obviously it's so easy. Hindsight is 2020. We're watching the video Monday, quarterbacks, whatever, all that stuff. But and I've made my fair share of mistakes, but just that assumption that, you know what, I'm assuming they don't see me. I'm going to turn tighter. I'm going to stay inside. I don't know, whatever. Not as a way to place blame. I don't mean it like that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. And I think hopefully it goes without saying, because you know, landing area incidents, you know, you were fine. Looked like you might have maybe made it even without a bruise, and he was probably a little bit banged up. If there's one more system height in this scenario, we're having a pretty different discussion. And if you guys lived through that, that would have been good. So it's important to acknowledge that this was a really close call. And it's nice when you have those videos where you can show a really close call and nobody died and nobody's seriously injured, and we can try and learn from it, because this is not far away from a bad accident.
Right. And that was the goal of the post that I made. We really want to, you know, hopefully help other people maybe be more aware under Canopy, and to prevent them being in the same situation.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, Monica, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing the video, and please tell that other jumper that we're really thankful that he's willing to share and let us talk and do stuff. And we, you know, like I said, we've all made mistakes. We've all done things we shouldn't have done. And I think he just honestly didn't see you. He, like JRuss said. And so we're thankful that both of y'all are willing to help everybody be safer through these things. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Monica.
Blue skies, Monica. That's good, man. That's helpful. I mean, it's a scary video, but it's also really good to force ourselves to watch those or look at those incident reports, all that stuff, you know.
Yeah. I have an on we really need to have another guy on as a guest. So STC Rhythm is the belly team here.
Mm-hmm.
And in previous years, that was mostly shepherded by Steve and Jeanette Lefkowitz, who are the founders of that team. They have moved on, and it continues with Doug Barron and some new jumpers. But they had a camera flyer a couple of years ago, Justin Wageman. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he is a PhD in educational systems or something like that. That's getting the point across. And we had a fairly long discussion, and then Steve Lefkowitz and I carried that discussion on for years about whether or not it is effective and efficacious to show people videos of bad things that have happened.
Oh, that's a good question, man.
Yeah, and Justin's argument was that it's not.
Wait, this is the guy who has the educational degree or whatever.
Yes,
And he says it's not helpful.
Not helpful.
What?
And if you can believe it. He said, according to him, it's been studied and tested fairly extensively, and if you get benefits from seeing negative things from a video, it's very fleeting. It just doesn't last very long. So the thrust of what he was saying was that they prefer, or the preferred methodology is to show the right thing over and over again. And you can mention that this could go wrong, but to not show people that. And so, yeah, I mean, over the years talking with Steve, I have videos that I like showing people about, say, angle flying. When angle flying went really wrong because you disregarded the rules and no one died. And thankfully I don't have any videos of the fatality kind, which is really nice, but I do have a couple that are pretty bad accidents that could have been fatalities but weren't, and everyone ended up okay. But there are real world consequences to the rules that we set for whatever skydive we're on. And in the case of an angle flying jump, there's some basic rules that you learn, and then you build on those as you go. But if you disregard those, no matter what level you're on, if you disregard the basic rules, you're in jeopardy at that moment. So I still show it sometimes.
Now I'm like, I want to see.
Yeah. We can show it. I have permission from everybody involved. But maybe that's a different angle. Flying would be a great one.
Real quick, are you able to summarize? His name's Justin. Is that what you said?
Justin is the PhD, former camera flyer. Yes.
Yeah. Are you right now? Off the top of your head, can you summarize his reasons as to why that's, or do we need to have him on and talk to him? And
I can paraphrase, but it was basically that the gains, whatever gains you think you're getting, are very fleeting. It doesn't last, and it's a much more long lasting and effective way to teach by showing or teaching the right thing and not showing or teaching the wrong thing.
How would they even study that? I'm really interested to hear how they went about that. That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. I think he's still skydiving, so maybe I could talk him into coming on the show with us.
That'd be cool, man. That'd be fun.
He can chastise me for showing my videos over and over again.
Exactly. Yes.
But I think they work really well.
Justin, get him. Okay, you mentioned we got a few more minutes. The basic rules for angle flying. You mentioned it, so
okay.
Lay them on us.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, what I'm probably going to end up doing is giving most of my introductory briefing for angle flying, but there are a couple of rules that I think of as basics for angle flying, and the first one that I try and get everyone to listen to is that when we get out of the plane, we're going to turn 90 degrees from line of flight, and there's a little bit of contention around that, believe it or not, that some groups and some very well-known groups, although I'm not going to say anybody by name, they actually teach going up line of flight for a short period of time, gathering everyone, and then turning or starting the jump. And I had a fairly extensive conversation with a good friend who is in one of those very well-known angle fly groups. And she actually helped me develop some of the stuff that we're using at Skydive Chicago, and refined. I wrote up basically a leadership quiz and system for signing off leaders at Skydive Chicago. And she helped me make it better. And she's been a longtime friend. And we ended up from that having a long conversation about, probably spent 10 minutes talking about just the line of flight thing. And I had a couple of points that I thought were important. And one of them is, and Chris, I think that you'll identify with this a little bit because I know you do some coaching and some organizing. You never know what people are going to hear. Of all the shit that you say, I don't know exactly what people are going to hear or what words are going to sink into their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if a newer angle fly person that's very overwhelmed and, this is their first group and that what they hear is we're going up line of flight and they get confused, and that is their skydive.
Mm.
And
Whew.
now we have taken a group that might have left them, but they heard, well, we're going up line of flight and I know jump run was north. I should just keep going north and maybe I'll catch back up with them. And that's troublesome in my mind. And I'm guessing, I haven't been through a course at anybody's angle fly stuff, although I would really like to. I just need more hours in the day. I would love to be a student in one of those courses and just hear how it's taught, but I'm assuming that they do specify, hey, we're just going up line of flight for 3 or 5 seconds or whatever, and then we're going to turn perpendicular to line of flight. But it's, in my opinion, it's just as easy to gather people after you've turned 90 degrees from line of flight, even if you aren't actually moving very much right now. I'm just getting us away from those other groups. Mm-hmm. And I may have made some progress in convincing her. I'm not sure. I never asked. Okay, so a basic rule: turn off line of flight. A basic rule,
real quick, because I always like to turn off line of flight. I mean, like out the door. That's what I always tell people. If they're flying with me, I'm right. Organized. I'm leading a jump. It's like, but convince me that it needs to be 90 degrees. Why is 45, 50, 60 degrees not enough?
Well, it depends on kind of what the skydive is, but I would argue that your first move needs to be 90 to take you some distance away from jump run on pretty much every jump. And if you think about, as you get into lesser angles, and we actually had an issue here last week at Skydive Chicago with a very experienced leader who went 45. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he's got a 6 or 7 way. He goes 45. In his mind, he's not a local, but he's been doing camps here. And then you've got 3 or 4 people on a side, right? And at break off, if they just went 45, let's say arbitrarily jump run was north, they go 45 to the north
for the whole jump,
east, or however much, I don't know. There are 3 or 4 people whose radial for break off is going to be back towards jump run.
Gotcha.
And depending on how good everyone is, depending on how close to 45 they actually were they 40? Were they 38? Were they 46? Mm-hmm. Like, nobody's getting out a protractor, but people in his group opened a canopy close to one of the next groups. Uh-huh. And so there was, of course, our Anthony, our manager in SNTA, came out and had a discussion with that leader and clarified it must be 90. Mm-hmm. Because even like if you think, okay, this is a very beginner angle, I'm going to go 90 degrees to line of flight as soon as we get out the door. And then just so we don't all get too far away, I'm going to change that. So let's say jump run was north. I decide to go west. And then somewhere halfway through the jump, I'm going to go northwest. I'm going to turn it about 45 degrees. So we don't get too far off the wind line. Nobody's too far from the drop zone. But that's still 2 or 3 people who are on the inside of that turn who are now going to go back towards jump run. And since we tracked away for 20 seconds, it's very unlikely that in their 5 seconds they're going to get back to that group. But depending on the skill set of the people after them, depending on where their canopy opens, what direction they're flying. Did they have line twist? Are they flying blind back towards jump run? Now we've got a whole bunch of really interesting scenarios. And when I say interesting, I mean crap scenarios that when you start shaving it towards jump run, that's just an iffy proposition in my mind. And similar to swooping, the belly flyers that are coming after you don't give a shit about your angle. They want to open and clear airspace, and they want to fly safely to the ground, and they flew straight down. And when people start adding angles, like I like angle jumps and they're really fun, but it is a danger to the people around you when it is done anything other than correctly. And so 45 is not okay. At least not for me. And while I'm at Skydive Chicago, it's probably not going to be okay.
No, that's great. Thank you. That's very helpful.
So
that's very good.
An immediate turn out the door. Once the jump is starting to get established, like people have been collected, if you draw a center line through the long axis of the leader, you are on one side or the other, and you will stay on that side unless it is prescribed that people will be switching sides during the jump, which is a very advanced jump, and for most people is not really a thing right now.
You're going back to your rules, right? Just to clarify.
Yeah, rule. Second rule would be establish a line through the center of the leader. Don't cross that center line.
Stay on your side.
Stay on your side. Rule number 3, once you're on your side, stay in your lane. And if I usually equate it to like a pack of bicycle racers, and there's people on all sides, and if you're going side to side in your bike, eventually you're going to hit somebody and you need to go straight. And so if you're going side to side in my jump, my counseling would be, hey, stop that. Just go back to neutral belly and now try and accelerate again straight forward, even if it drops you back from the jump, because you're still way safer than doing crazy stuff side to side. So those 3 rules get the jump going. Turn 90 degrees, pick the center of the leader, stay in your lane. After that, we'll talk about where exactly is the right position for belly and back. What are the quadrants around the leader? We're going to talk about that a little bit, although in the beginning, that's kind of drink it from a fire hose. And then the other big rule that I want to talk about is break off. And then I'll add one more, I think. But in any skydive, getting to the skydive and leaving the skydive are the most dangerous parts, typically. When we're all going the same speed in the same direction, cool, everything's pretty safe. When we are approaching and we are departing, we are intentionally changing direction from other people, and we are changing fall rates from other people. And we're doing it on purpose. We have to get away from them. So the word that I normally use to describe break off to my groups is that it starts out as progressive, or it is progressive. It starts out with, say, I'm looking over my left shoulder, I'm watching JRuss lead. Cool, we're going in a straight line, right on. I see him signal for break off. Progressive means in that first moment, absolutely nothing changes other than I was looking at JRuss, and now I'm going to look over my outside shoulder and start clearing the space that I intend to move. I know the leader's there. That's not where I'm going. I'm going whatever my radial might be. Once I've seen that I have some clear airspace, now I gently rudder with my shoulders until I veer away from the leader, still going relatively slow, as considering what we were just doing with the leader. And only when I've picked my radial, gently turn to that line, now I stretch out and I start going flatter and faster and faster and faster, so that by the time that my track off is complete, I'm going as flat and as fast as I can. But it started very slowly, so that if there's somebody behind me who's either high or confused, or they didn't hear their ditter go off, somebody who didn't get the memo is not charging like a bullet to get back into the jump while I'm trying to flatten out and go away from the jump. Those are radically different speeds and directions. So I really emphasize a progressive break off to my jumpers. And then the last thing would be for leaders, that I think there's an important rule to consider, that whatever complexity you're going to add to the jump, orientation changes, turns, dives, flattening out, whatever, barrel rolls, whatever you're going to do, all that happens in the middle of the jump, the first 2/3 of the jump, whatever, so that the last 10 seconds, 8 seconds is smooth and slow relatively slow, not steep to the ground, slow to the ground, and very, very predictable. So that whatever explosion happened during your barrel roll, your turn, your dive, your flat, whatever, those things always spread people out. And that the last 10 seconds or 8 seconds allows it to coalesce again, where it's slow, everybody got in. I know exactly where the group is. And now when I break off, it makes sense. I have a good idea of where my other fun jumpers are.
Yeah. All right, that's good.
So
man.
that's a nutshell.
That's really good. Okay, so I'm going to try to recap. 90 degree out the door, off jump run. Find the line through the long axis of the leader and get on your side. Stay on your side. Number 3, stay in your lane. Number 4, that was to do with joining the group and leaving, or just break off.
Break off. Progressive break off.
Progressive break off. And then lastly,
for the
leader, any kind of complexities need to happen in the first 2/3. So the last third of the jump, last at least 10 seconds, is smooth and predictable and easy.
Yeah, similar to the beginning that you gathered people. At the end, you're going to gather people again, so that it's not a zoo at break off.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this question, because I just had not too long ago some guys, really great guys, like very good flyers and very nice guys. Like I was really happy to get to jump with these guys, because it's a group of guys I don't ever get to jump with. So I was just stoked and enjoyed jumping with them. And they really like for the end of a jump to get faster, an angle. They like for it to get faster and faster at the end, so that everyone has speed building into the end of the jump to have that speed to break off and get away from one another. What's your thoughts and opinion? It sounds like you just said the opposite.
I did. Yeah. When I'm on a belly,
when they said it to me, because I was leading a jump, and that was, and after we got down, I said, "Hey, you have any feedback? Anything?" And that was one of the things that one of them says, like, "Hey, yeah, you might just think about at the end. It was kind of mild and just pretty. It wasn't flat, it wasn't steep. It was just a very medium part of the jump. It was kind of exactly what you described." And they're like, you might just think about just really speeding it up at the end to give everybody some speed, so they can really get that. To get away from one another. Sorry. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I mean, look, there's always going to be different opinions on how it's supposed to be done. But if you take your flat, mellow ending of the jump and everyone's around you, if it's flat and mellow, nobody has a ton of power in that moment. How do they hurt other people? I mean, if we're all going slowly the same direction, you and I are creeping through the parking lot at 5 miles an hour, what are we going to do to our cars? I mean, you might bend the metal a little bit because there's a decent amount of momentum, but nobody's getting seriously hurt at 5 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And if we say, okay, we're going to go out on the freeway instead, because of that 65 miles an hour, we can go faster away from each other. I agree. That is true. And when you fuck up with that power, you have a lot of power to hurt somebody, where in your situation, you just don't. And when I get into a group of people that say they're never going to make mistakes, I'm out of that group right then. That just isn't the case. I make mistakes all the time. And I think I know where people are, and I don't. And, I'm still alive in skydiving. There's been a couple times that it was just blind luck. I messed up really badly, and I didn't kill myself or somebody else, but it could have easily gone the other way. And we all have friends that aren't with us. So, I mean, I like the power that I have on a head down jump. When I break off, it is a ton of power. I'm going 180 miles an hour. And when I lean on the wind, I've got tons of power going out. But if somebody interrupts that movement, we are both in serious trouble. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going 120 and I got to try and make I got to make a move out to start tracking away from this group, I'm telling you, I have no power, and I'm a good flyer, and I got to build up a little bit of angle before I can get some speed. But that whole time I'm going slow, I'm looking where I'm going. I'm seeing that there's nobody in front of me, and then I'm moving out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and I would say, these guys I'm talking about, they're the type of guys that would hear you say that, and they would listen and really consider. I think they would. I mean, from what I know of them, they're those types of guys that they would really listen and consider your perspective and your opinion and say, well, maybe that, I think they would be like that. I'm not saying they would change their mind. I'm just saying they care. They're trying to be safe. They're trying to make good decisions. So I think they would appreciate another perspective. And, to the other side, like what you were saying, we do that on belly jumps all the time. Nobody has any speed. And we turn and break away, and you got nothing. You
right.
just gotta
And
go.
you just got to go, and you got to do the best you can and get away from people. But, if a belly 4-way team, they start tracking away and one of them bumps into the other one, well, we haven't built up any power yet. Like, we're still mostly vertical. We're both going this exact same speed, and it'd be like a chuckle of like, oh, I bumped into Charlie or whatever. You know? Where I've got video of people when they're at high speed knocking other people unconscious. And, 2 friends of mine, luckily very good flyers, 3 friends of mine dumped other people out that were unconscious. And I can't imagine. Those are spicy jumps.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. That's super helpful, man. Well, if you're listening, you've done it again. You wasted another perfectly good hour listening to JRuss and Chris ramble on and on about all sorts of stuff. Thanks for joining us. I hope it's beneficial. I hope it's fun. I hope it's not a waste of time. But we'll keep going as long as, well, even if people don't listen, we'll keep going probably.
Listen, man, we had a total of 8 people in this podcast. That's 6 more than we've ever had before. So
there you go.
It's going the right direction.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, I hope it's been beneficial to everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it. Share it with your friends. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you can find it. And we'll just keep making these, man.
Cool.
Thanks,
I'll see you next week. Yeah.
All right.
Cool, man.
Peace.
See ya.